I've got to ask you about that. I started the show talking a little bit about this. I want to be very clear about this. I'm very excited about Connor Bedard and what he might do. I am uncomfortable with how quickly people have seemed to forgotten the hockey that they watched for the last 15 years. Because I hear stuff like, this is the greatest prospect that we've ever seen. And I'm like, hold on a second. I just watched 15 years of Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, and also Duncan Keith and Brent Seabrook and Corey Crawford. And I am uncomfortable with what people are putting on Connor Bedard in the context of what we just witnessed. And also, I don't know, guys like Alex Ovechkin and guys like Connor McDavid that are in the league right now doing incredible things. So as someone who is around this game all the time and talks to all the people, why do people feel this strongly about what Bedard is and what he can turn into?
You are speaking my language. This is I've been obsessed with this, of the expectations on this kid. I mean, if you think like they're saying he's the best prospect since Connor McDavid, who is the greatest hockey player who's ever lived. There's never been a talent like Connor McDavid. So the pressure's right there. Like some people think he might be like Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane is the greatest American hockey player who ever lived. He's got 3 Stanley Cups. He won an MVP. He is going down in history. If Connor Bedard has Patrick Kane's career, he failed based on the expectations that are being put for him. That's how lofty and ridiculous this has become. Now, he, from all accounts, can live up to it. Like he's got this ridiculous shot. He's got incredible hockey sense. He's not a burner, but he's a good skater, and he has a knack for finding open rooms. He is, by all, nobody thinks he's going to flop. This isn't Nail Yakupov or Alex Daig. There is almost a 0 chance he flops. But what if he's just really, really, really good? What if he scores 80 points a year instead of 120 points a year? What if he's only the best player in the league once, like Patrick Kane was when he won an MVP? I mean, this kid's a stud. He's everything you need. He's everything everyone says he could be. But he is 17 years old. He is a year younger than most prospects. So everyone says he's got a great head on his shoulders and that he's built to handle this mentally and physically. But it's fascinating to talk about the expectations because the hype train is it's off the rails.
Okay, so let's talk about his makeup, because when I think it's rough on any sport when you're talking about someone that's supposed to transform a franchise. But in talking to Connor, in talking to people about Connor, what is it that folks say about him that might make him equipped to handle it?
The word you hear the most is humble, which is like an odd word to talk about a teenager, but they say that he kind of understands what he is and he's obsessed with greatness, but he doesn't like flaunt it. They think that this kid's been on a pedestal since he was like 11 years old, 10 years old at the Brick Tournament in Edmonton. I mean, he's all he's known is these expectations. Just like Connor McDavid was anointed when he was a kid. Just like Sidney Crosby was anointed when I think Wayne Gretzky said he was going to be the next great player when he was like 11 years old. That's what Bedard's faced. So this is not new for him. It's just going to be on a larger scale. And it's interesting because you look at Connor McDavid. He's been in the league for 8 seasons. He's won nothing. He is the best player I've ever seen. He's won nothing. This is hockey. This isn't the NBA where one guy can completely transform a team. Look, when Kane and Toews came into the league in 2007, first of all, they had each other. So that deferred some of the expectations. Also, Chicago wasn't really a hockey town yet again. It was still kind of dormant. But also, they walked into a team that already had Keith, that already had Seabrook, Chalmerson, Patrick Sharp. The team that Connor Bedard is walking into, one of our analysts, Dom Lushizin, said this is basically the worst team a number 1 pick has walked into since in the salary cap era. So the Blackhawks are going to be bad again this year. They want to be bad. They want a top 5 pick next year too. Macklin Celebrini right in Chicago. They want him. So it's going to be a process, and I think most people understand that, and they're going to give him grace. He's going to be so exciting that it's not going to matter that they're bad next year. Like I'm not trying to be a wet blanket here. This is like the biggest thing that can happen to a team. Getting a guy like this is huge, and he's going to be spectacular, and it's going to make Blackhawks hockey fun again. But if you're expecting him to walk in and all of a sudden the Blackhawks are contenders, no, they're still years away, and Kyle Davidson knows that. He has articulated that clearly.
So what else? They clearly need everything, but what becomes priority? You've got Bedard. You've got a guy that you think is a transformative player. What does he need to help him reach his potential?
Well, again, he needs depth, right? Like what made those Blackhawks teams so special 10 years ago or so was just like how their third line was like better than some teams' first line, how their fourth line could play 15 minutes a night against the best players in the league and completely shut them down. You need that. Now, the Blackhawks over the last couple of years have been focusing on defense, and they get Kevin Korchinski last year at number 7 when they make the trade with DeBrincat. That's your number 1 defenseman. That's supposed to be your Duncan Keith. Now you've got Connor Bedard. That's your number 1 center. That's your Jonathan Toews. Those are the 2 hardest things to find, are your number 1 center and your number 1 defenseman. So if that pans out, the rest of this becomes easier. Then it's just about drafting as many guys as you can. And they've torn down the roster so much in the last 3 years that they are swimming in picks. They got 2 first-round picks this year, 2 next year, 2 the year after that. They had 3 last year. They have 4 second-round picks this year, 2 next year, 3 the year after that, and 3 the year after that. So they have so many lottery tickets now. And now that you have Bedard, you don't need to hit on as many of them, right? You just need to get some depth. And they're drafting all these incredibly fast, incredibly skilled centers. That's what they want. They want to be fast. They want to be competitive. That's the modern day NHL. It's not about being big and strong and hulking anymore. It's about speed. And so they're trying to surround Connor Bedard with pure talent and competitive edge. And that's the kind of hockey you saw last year. And it's what Luke Richardson wants to play. And it's what Kyle Davidson is drafting. I mean, look, this is really hard. Roster building in the NHL is probably harder than in any other sport. But give Kyle Davidson credit. I hated the tank. I still hate the tank, but it worked. And this team is set up for a lot of success in 2, 3, 4 years when these guys all come in and mature and are ready to take over.
Yeah, if Jonathan Toews scores that goal, though, they might even end up with the number 1 pick. How have you heard that Kyle Davidson has gone about convincing ownership that you have to go scorched earth to try and figure all of this stuff out?
Well, that was his pitch, right? That was his pitch when they were interviewing. There were other people interviewing, established NHL executives, people who had been GMs before, former NHL players. And Kyle Davidson was kind of second or third man on the totem pole in the Blackhawks organization. He was very young, and he said, look, we need to do this. This is the only way to do. If you want to duplicate what the Blackhawks had from 2010 to 2015, this is the only path forward, is to just rip it to the studs and then just build it back up again, just like they did. Mike Babcock said way back in 2013 when he was the Red Wings coach, I remember him saying, you have to lose the right way. And the Blackhawks lost the right way. And what he meant by that was you have to maximize the losing. When you're terrible, you better get the top picks and you better hit on your top picks. That's what the Hawks did with Toews and Kane. That's probably what just happened with Bedard. We'll see about, Korchinski and Frank Nazar and Oliver Moore and all these other kids they're drafting. But they've got Bedard, and that's the hardest thing to find is the megastar to build around.
I kind of find the tanking in most situations unsavory as well. What are the mistakes that you've seen teams that have gone through the tank and maybe haven't completed it? What mistakes have they made and hopefully the Blackhawks avoid?
They don't have the patience for it. Like Kyle Davidson does not want to be good next year. He wants more high-end talent, right? Like if the Hawks are, and the Hawks might be competitive. They're going to have Taylor Hall, former MVP. They're going to have Bedard, Korchinski, and Reichel. Like it's going to be exciting because you have some of these younger guys finally coming in and playing. So they might be more competitive than we think. But that's not going to, Kyle Davidson's not going to see that and go at the trade deadline, we're adding. Like they're not going to do, they're still going to be, if someone wants Taylor Hall at the deadline and they want to give you a first round pick, he's going to jump at that. So the idea is, a lot of these rebuilds and tear downs, they get kind of short circuited after a year or two because of, a GM's worried about his job or the GM overestimates the talent he has. Kyle Davidson has the longest leash I've seen in the Chicago GM. Danny Wirtz and Jamie Faulkner, they are completely on board with what he's doing, and they know it's going to be a years-long process. So that's the key. The key is not to get too excited too quickly. Like just because you got Bedard doesn't mean that next year's a go-for-it year.